what frustrates me about Ben Blomley is that he calls my ideas side hustles. Just because I've not layered in a load of hard tech, he thinks they're side hustles. And I think people, high-touch marketplaces, adding that human element is key. And an idea you came up with a few weeks ago, I love. I don't think there's much tech involved in this. I think this is brutal, hardcore, on the phones, get it done. But I think it could be a massive business. So this episode is Ben Blomley, not a side hustle, just because there's no tech or limited tech. So Rich, this idea didn't make the first cut. Not because it wasn't a good idea, but because our tech stack was a mess. So now we've got a slightly better visuals. We're going to revisit this idea.
Doug's running it at 720p.
I'm now running 720. I'm sharp as you like. I've got my...
Good guts 4K. We're like cruising at 2004 kind of resolution at the minute. Better than 1996 issue, were they?
Yeah, we were back in the 80s. Talking of times, I went on Friday night to a retirement party, and...
Did you know them?
It was a guy who was my mentor when I was a teacher between the years of 2005 and 2007. The school that he's still at the same school, and that school still takes on teacher trainee people like what I did.
Yeah, they all do. Yeah, I remember doing that.
And so I was chatting to some of these trainees that are now trainees at that school. So they're basically doing what I did 16 years ago. I was talking to this guy, and we worked out that he was 5 when I started as a teacher trainee at that school. And now he's a man. It's depressing, isn't it?
So when I started teaching, I did my first placement in 1999, and those kids were 5 then. I taught upper primary, 7, so 1992, so they'll be, yeah, well, there you go, 31.
Them seeing me was the equivalent, well, if I was a teacher, of another trainee from 1989 turning up and me seeing them.
Getting on, aren't we, Doug?
So, your idea. This is my favourite idea you've come up with, and it's called Car Hound, and
it is,
I'm going to try and do it in 20 seconds. So the idea is you want to buy a used car, it's a minefield, so you phone up Car Hound on the phone, Ben, not some shit app, on the phone, and you say, I want to buy a Vauxhall Astra 2016 that has, you know, I've got a $7,000 budget, go and find it for me. How does it? Is that right?
It's essentially, yeah. I mean, it's an idea that I discussed with a chap that I used to work with called Dave Engelthaler. So I can't take all of the credit. It was very much an origination from Dave that we progressed. So yeah, the idea is that buying a used car rather than a new car is inherent with risk. All right, so you don't know all of the things that have gone on with it. The history you can get reports and things now to reduce it, but the process of going to talk to used car dealers and go through that experience is intimidating. We're not talking about buying a 2-year-old Astra, a 3-year-old Astra. We're talking about buying something that's 10 years old or 11 years old, where there are more inherent risks to it, but also the process of going through the haggling and the process of going through the identification of which one's good against another one when there's hundreds to choose from. So the idea is stick an agent or a person in front of that who understands the car, understands the stock that people use, can professionally negotiate with people on your behalf. There have to be some form of liability in there in case it breaks down. I don't know how to do that. Deal with that later. But the concept is request comes in. I've got £8,000. I want an SUV. I want it preferably within inside of this region. What have you got for me? You go to your database, you go to your auto trade, everything else. You say, right, here are your cars, bang. Quick research. I could do that in 10 minutes, 15 minutes probably. And then you go and say, okay, I'm really interested in that one. It's local to me. Let's go and get that thing bought. That's stage 1. Stage 2, ideally, would be like request comes in, all the used car dealers log on and see these requests.
Oh, I hate that.
Requests that are validated.
I hate it.
You hate that?
I hate it.
You hate the second one?
I hate the second one. The second one is the first one. You can speak to a person who's going to find out what you really want, and then
but no. Yeah, but you can speak to the second. The second one is the request is just put up on in, if you like, a beacon or like an area where all the used car people can go. That crappy Rover 75 I've been trying to shift for whatever, or someone is looking for a Rover 75 for $1,000, they can go and get out, but they can outbound instead of just inbound. And I think that is something that used car dealers can't do as well. So I think it's twofold. I think requests come in and then the agents can go and do the work and they get a commission. But I think there's also a one where you can say, I'm going to put this up on a bit like the MLS for the American housing market. And then people can go and bid, people can go and say, well, I've got that. And, you know, I can sell you that car. Because that, but it's identification, but it's also the transaction. And I don't think people like second-hand car buying. I don't mind it because I like cars and I'm used to it and I quite enjoy the haggle and the hustle of it. Most people hate it, I think. So that's the idea. Car Hound. Sniff it out.
Yeah, look, I love it. I don't mind a little bit of, okay, like the agent, a Car Hound, like going out and sending the broadcast out to all the car dealers. I don't want the user doing that. I want the user to come to Car Hound and tell you.
Oh no, the user won't do it.
Okay, yeah, cool. So
the user won't do it. It's the internal network. Agents got all of the relationships with AJ Cars in Birmingham, you know, etc.
Can you get a good deal for someone on a car? Like, are all these? Is there not just a market price for these cars, or is it because of like various conditions and just price discrepancies that there are good and bad deals out there?
There are absolutely good and bad deals out there.
Okay. And what's a bad deal look like? An engine that's about to blow up?
I mean, there's the mechanical check side of this, which is challenging. You know, and how do you do that? I mean, I think that's an add-on service. I think you'd get that car taken to a local mechanic and you'd get them through a 10-point check or whatever. So I think there is that side to it. A bad deal can often be really poor history. So you might have Cat C, it could have been crashed, or Cat S or Cat D or whatever they're called now. So whether it's had any accident history and any extended finance, there are things that you can do like Car Vertical. Should probably put Car Vertical downside. Car Vertical do a fantastic check system, and that really is actually pretty good. So I think there are lots of risks in there, but mechanical condition is one. But I think also, if you don't know what the market's doing, if you don't know how often these are selling, you don't know if there's too many on the market, that supply and demand really drives a lot of the price, which is why used car sales have strengthened through COVID, because there weren't as many new cars on being produced, and therefore everything held their value. So I think there's loads of factors in it. I think if you can get experts that understand the used car market to be able to go and to facilitate those transactions, it changes the mold of a used car dealer would probably typically have to have a lot. They'd have to do that. Now they could actually be a Car Hound dealer, and they're responsible for going to source these cars. And I think it creates a new role or new job in the car industry.
Yeah, it's almost like instead of walking to a used car garage, or you've got two options at the moment. You go to your used car garage, or you go online and you search for one yourself, and then you go in contact with the garage. And I think what we're proposing, or you're proposing, is a third option, which is like, it's a used car garage, but it's like whole market, it's a person, and it's remote. So Deirdre does not need to do it herself online, and she does not need to go
absolutely
to the Ford dealer in Southend and chat to them. She can phone up Car Hound, and Car Hound is going to take her hand, put a little blanket around her, and just lead her through the process. What do you want? We're going to find you a great deal. We're going to make sure the car's not fucked. We're going to make sure the price is right. We're going to make sure they don't rip you off. You don't have to deal with them. We don't have to talk to them because you're a bit worried about that. We're going to take all of that, which I think is a great idea. There must be hundreds of thousands of these cars transacted. The question I have for you, my only issue with these marketplaces is always inserting fees. So where do you get paid without it seeming a little bit icky?
Yeah. So where Dave and I were talking was about the States, because I was going to be moving over to the States, and we were talking about used car dealers in the States. Used car dealers in the States said they would pay a subscription fee for either the feed of people that are looking for it, or they would happily pay a percentage on transaction to get that car sold. I don't know how that sits in the UK. I'm not sure, but I would imagine there might be something similar. The CarWow example for new cars, I want a Mercedes C-Class, and then the dealers write to CarWow. That business has exploded. They do new cars because there's no risk around anything used. That's a subscription. for dealerships to be able to get the leads. So I think there's a few ways you could shape it. I think it could be either a fee thing, where it's a subscription, or it's a percentage of sale. And if you handle the transaction, that's slightly easier to take.
The only issue is with that is that you've got to have the car dealers on side, and a lot of them won't want to be a member. They won't want to pay, which can then reduce your market. That's the only issue with doing it that way. I prefer that way.
They would want to pay if they can sell their cars that have been sitting on their lot forever and a day. But yeah, look, Doug, I think there needs to be a big chunk of kind of trying to validate this concept, right? It's a theoretical concept that we spoke to American dealerships with, and they were keen on it. It hasn't been validated in the UK, but it is. I think it's a bit of a problem. I think people hate buying second-hand cars.
No doubt, it's a problem. No doubt, there's a really good business there. I think the question mark here, and I think you could solve it, is just how you pay for this. There's one way you could do it. You could maybe you do the transaction side and you don't necessarily make anything from that, but you have a scenario where each car is like checked, and then you have regional centers that check them, and you take a commission on the check of the car when it gets transacted. So that's how you make money. Don't know enough about it, but I love the idea. So it just needs a model. It just needs a business model.
Yeah. I think there'll be ways around it, and I think you could start local and you could start small, and I think you could pilot it pretty quickly. If you were to say, let's go and run this in Brighton, and we're going to be looking at cars up to £20,000, and this is the fee, we're going to take X percent. You find your local garage that we could drive that car to, get it checked out, or get some form of these multi-point checks. That's not rare to do that. It's all been done before. I think it'd be worth someone picking this up and having a crack with it.
I like the idea of start small, just test what people are willing to pay for, how the model works, or these car dealers are willing to do as well. Okay, right. Let's give it an outro. Is that your outros now?
I think you should do this outro on this one.
Okay, what have I got? I've got, if you liked this episode, press the little, what is it on YouTube? Is it like a bell? Or is it
No, that's a subscribe. That's a subscribe.
It's a red, on LinkedIn it's a bell. On YouTube it's a little red subscribe button. We are working up towards one idea every day, 10 minutes, just a little shot of business inspiration in the morning. Give us a subscribe. That's actually harder than it looks. Right, we're going to have to work on that. Okay, Rich.
It is harder than you think, isn't it? Yeah, but it is. It's not bad.
Right.
Nice one, Doug.
Okay. See you later, guys.
Take care, mate. Bye.